Well, let's get going, everybody. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the 20 R7 and R8 beta release webinar. It's been a few months since we spoke. A lot has changed, and yeah, so uh, we're really happy to be here today with you all to showcase the advances that have come in the past two versions or are coming really soon with the R8, but all the advances that have been going on in the 4D product. Um, and yeah, so today you have myself, Will Taylor, the technical account manager at 4D in the US, located in rainy today, Northern California. And we have with us Komoncharoensiri, who is the director of technical services also in 4D US. And yeah, this is a great time for us to not only have a deep dive into all of the new features that are going in 4D, but also to play with them and to show them what we've been doing. So, and the way that we've broken up this webinar is into 6 chapters. First one is going to be in the largest, because that's actually the brunt of the work that's been happening in the 4D is what we consider the developer things. Oh, volume's good. Thank you. Developer things. So things as most people in this call right now are developers. And 4D is a developer-driven application. Uh, so we're going to highlight we're going to spend the most of the time highlighting the features for the developer. Next thing is onto user interface. We'll discuss some changes in the 4D user interface or things for your user interface. Changes that allow you to add new features into your user interface in the latest versions of 4D. 4D Write Pro, 4D View Pro update, 4D Qodly Pro update, and also some deployment updates. So don't think I missed anything in the housekeeping. So yeah, let's get started. We have a lot of demos. So first one is going to be deployment. First chapter, we'll start with deployment. And just a quick update on the OS compatibility update. So with 20R7 R8, it is Windows Server 2025 compliant or certified. Mac OS Sequoia, that's what I'm running right now. And Windows 11 24 hotfix 2. So I think that's the one that came out last October-ish. And then from the blog, here is the more detailed view of what the compatibility of 20R7 and R8 is. So as you can see, 20R8 is no longer was no longer supported on Mac OS Monterey, which also coincides with Apple's end of support for Mac OS Monterey. So you have Ventura, Sonoma, and Sequoia to work with. And Windows Server 2025, which came out, I believe, last November, is slated to be certified for 20R8. That's where we're at there. Some other things that have been happening. So, 4D is also updated 22 commands in R8 and will deprecate 4. So 4 of the commands. There's a blog post that discussed this more, but and for those of you who are working in binary mode, or for those of you working in project mode with the include tokens in project source file option, you don't need to do anything. 4D manages all of the renaming for you and through that tokenization process in 4D. But if you for whatever reason are not tokenizing, including the tokens in your project source file, and you're in project mode, you're going to have to replace those by hand. But yeah, so just letting you know that some things may change when you open up 20R8 automatically. So that's kind of it for the kind of deployment style questions or deployment style chapter. Any questions? Anybody have one that they already wanted to ask? Well, if something does come to mind as I'm going through, feel free to pop it in. I'll make a break at each after each chapter to answer your questions. Next is on to the developer news. So, and we're excited to introduce a powerful enhancement in 20R8. And you can now associate a class with a form. And associating a class with a form offers you a more robust and error-free development experience. So when you associate a class with a form, the object returned by the form command is now typed, and this changes everything for you. And it simplifies your life a lot. That's what that means. The code editor now offers auto completion for the form command. So by typing form dot, you'll receive suggestions for all properties and functions declared in the form associated class, reducing the code errors and typos. You see first name, last name. Imagine you go camel case. You forget that for whatever reason, this person that you're working with likes to use all lowercase. You now don't have to remember that. You're not going to have that bug or that error when you go to launch the code. Annoying one. And then you also get real-time syntax checking. So if you have form.name and you forgot that it was first name, last name, full name, something like that, form.name is not part of that person class. It would be either first name or last name or full name. And there now you have, as you can see, an error in your form itself. So that's a really cool way for you to visually inspect and for 4D to do a little bit of work for you. And I think Ad is going, I'm going to pass the mic to Ad, and he's going to delve a little bit deeper on this topic. So I'm going to stop share, and I will let Ad share his screen.
All right. Hi, guys. So for this particular new feature, I want to kind of give you just a little bit of a history. A 4D form can already be bound to an object or even an entity. Okay, so in the past, if you have done this before, it's it's similar to what we used to have in the past. So I have, for example, this table, um, three fields. Okay, and I created another form that display a selection of data from that table. When clicking on the edit button, I'm going to display this form that has already been assigned to specific field for a particular object. So let's go ahead and take a look at this quickly of how it works. So, run this method. So each of these is basically a selection, an entity selection. I'm going to go ahead and kind of get into the debugger so you can see the code behind it. It's quite simple. Um, so for the selected item, I will set it to this entity variable. And basically, I will send it in as the form data. So this basically assign the entity to the whole form data concept, right? So again, it's quite simple. We probably have done this in the past also. So what's new in this feature is actually quite useful. So if we go back to this form, which is the input form. So at the form level itself, there's nothing to see for the moment, but at the field, you can see that there's a variable expression here. Now, let's say you want this form to be explicitly bound to the table entity. We can assign a form class to, the name of my table is person entity, okay? Once you have done that, if you click on any of these objects, like for example, anything that starts with form dot has to be correctly spelled out to match the attribute that belongs to that entity. So if I type something like that in there, you'll get an error right away. Basically, it's really explicit now. It helps developer when they are building something and they don't want to have any typo and any mistake. It's really keep everything in line. So like this form still work, but except that it will not be able to capture the information from first name field. Now, we've done that for the entity selection. What about if you have a class object? You can still do that as well. I have this simple class, two properties, f name or l name as a property. I can assign that instead of using a table entity, we can do the name of that class, okay? So let's click on this field. You can see that it notified that there's an error, there's a warning there, an undeclared property. So what if I go in and just start making changes to that to match? So it detects right away that it actually has that property inside of the object or a class object. So this is something that's quite useful in terms of making sure that your form is explicitly bound to any object or class object, entity, anything that you want to be loaded on a form, especially dealing with the form design. Immediately you get a real-time response whether you correctly um, specify something or not. Okay, so that's the feature. And back to you, Will.
Thank you, Ad. Oh, let me share my screen. Now we move on to another highly requested feature, the TCPConnection class, which has been introduced in 20R8. This is a feature that I know a couple very large deployers of 4D asked for. They asked for a modern modern rewrite for the TCP/IP, I guess, internet commands. That's what that was the request. And then this is our response for that. A modern way is in a class. So this modern object-oriented class replaces the traditional 4D internet commands, offering asynchronous network handling for more efficient and scalable connections. With TCPConnection, you can establish direct communication with external servers, printers, cash registers, industrial devices, big lab equipment, whatever you need. It supports the sending and receiving of binary data through events, ensuring responsive interactions. Plus, it has built-in callbacks for connection status, errors, incoming data, and handling of network communication. So you can say that the handling of your low-level network communications had never been easier. And we spoke with the developers about this feature, and I know the developers that requested this feature, and they said they needed a client on the client side to be written first. So we're currently, the TCP connection is now only the client side of a TCP connection. Next step, the server side. So TCP connection server class. Very cool. And next on to enhancing web communication with the outgoing message class. With 20R7, we're making web application development even more powerful. The outgoing message class enables seamless file downloads and binary data handling in a REST response, allowing developers to send PDFs, images, or any type of content effortlessly. Plus the new on HTTP GET keyword simplifies API interactions by enabling GET requests. This means a smoother and more intuitive experience for users and fewer workarounds for developers. So I guess we think of this feature as a modern way of doing what you probably already were doing when you were sending files through on-web connection. And then now let's look at the HTTP handlers. It's another powerful tool for enhancing web communication. HTTP handlers are used to process incoming HTTP requests and manage the responses. This is essential for web applications that interact with APIs, handle file uploads, or process forms. With HTTP handlers, you can efficiently manage different types of HTTP methods, such as get, post, put, and delete, those verbs. Each of these methods serves a unique purpose for interacting with resources, whether you're retrieving data, sending data, updating, or deleting it. This flexibility now gives you control over how your application interacts with the web. But enough about the feature overview. I'm going to pass the mic and the screen share to add to show a demo of this in action and how it all works.
Okay. So for this section, there are two separate demos. I'm going to start with the one that is dealing specifically for the REST feature and the exposure of a class function through REST. Okay, so here I have a class extends data class that's created for this particular example. In this class, I have a function, and if you look closely at the beginning here, there's a keyword on HTTP GET. This particular keyword is used to tell Forty that this function will be used to handle HTTP GET that is calling its function. So that's the function name. I'm using this example as a way to convert a text into a picture. It could be something else too. It's just something that's simple for you to for me to do a demonstration. So how we calling this function from the web through REST is quite simple. So I have this expression open URL to open that URL that is going to be start with REST. The next thing would be the data class, which is the table that I extend my data class from. And then that's the name of the function. The rest is the or are the parameters that I'm passing in, starting with the text value, the fonts and font size. Okay, so let's go ahead and execute this method. All right, so here we have the result that send back to us. So from a text hello world, it gets converted into a picture, very simple. What's nice about this function is if you are doing a REST request or even communication from Qodly, something like this can be done in order for you to gain access to particular functionality within your for the application. So again, we can play around with some of these parameters. So I'm gonna start changing maybe something like the font size, change it to 96. Okay, and you get a response very quickly. Again, all this thing is quite simple and to put together. The parameters, you have a set of data within a collection, and that's all it is. The information that goes in, it goes in as a GET request. Okay. So let's close this and go to the next example. And this one is also in the same realm of HTTP access also. We're trying to make it so that is a bit more streamlined, I would say, because of in the past that I've done this quite a bit. In many web application, you'll see a code that has been written inside of the on web connection, or even if you want to create a a method that is exposed through for the action, you can do that. But in this approach, it's a little different. It moves all of those sort of a gateway constraint outside of the structure. So let's have a look at this class quickly first. It's a singleton, a shared singleton. In here, there are two procedures that I want to happen. Um, I want this web server to do two things. First is to be able to load the list of documents from any particular location, and then send back the document name as well as the path to access that particular document. The second thing is to be able to download that specific document. Okay. Now, we can do this in the on-web connection. It's not an issue. But for this new way, we choose to do it in a different fashion. So first, I want to kind of describe the parameter a little bit. So this is the incoming message, which is you're going to have to declare in order to receive the information from your request. But where the request is being passed from is actually being constructed in this file. I'm going to go back to my folder. Oops, sorry, it opens up here. Okay, so in the project, you're going to go inside of the resources folder. I'm going to change this to list. Okay. There is a file here named http handlers.json. So what's inside are, I'm going to make it bigger. So a, a collection or an array of objects. So each object it consists of four properties. One is the class name, which is the file handling, method name, which is the function that we're going to be calling. Regex here, or just regex pattern, or just pattern, is to identify what's coming, and you can put the path or in the regex expression in there to capture information. Verbs, it could either be one of those options: get, post, put, delete, whatever you want to handle. Once it comes in, 4D will be able to identify from this particular file and then route it to the correct place, which is in this method here. So once it comes in, we'll be able to break down the information that was given to us. So for example, here, it's going to pass in the first thing that I'm going to do is doc list. Okay, so I have here an example of a call. So I'm going to go ahead and call that method. Okay. So what it does is it receives the information, construct the JSON, and then send it back to the front end. So let's go back to 4D and take a look at this part. It's quite simple the way that it is being handled. Inside of the request object, it contains all sorts of information, including the instruction that I need to capture. From there, I just construct my JSON. The two important functions that you're going to be using quite a bit, which is set body and set header. Body is basically anything that you want to send back. The header, you want to tell the caller or the browser how to handle this information once it receives it. So in this case, it's quite simple. I set the JSON as a text into the body and then set the content type to text slash JSON. Okay, now let's go back to the web browser. I'm going to go ahead and copy one of these URL, and then I'm going to call it, and this is to download. Okay, so again, the instruction is to download. It goes back, like it does exactly the same thing. The request that you receive for incoming contain everything that you're going to need. So in here, the instruction is to download, then I just proceed with getting the file from the right location and then process it and set the header to that particular type of file, send it back with the two function here, set body and set header. And go back to the front end one more time. Let's try with something like the PDF file. Sorry. Okay, so just like that. I mean, it's quite simple. Again, the way it works, versus how we used to program the web through on web connection or on web on the for the action, it's quite similar, except that now we encapsulate everything into a single object that comes in, and we can also control everything from outside of 4D structure. Just imagine if you have to make modification to your code or disable something, it can be done very quickly because all of those definition and constraint is outside of your structure file and sits in the JSON. Okay. The only thing that you have to be aware of anytime that you make changes to that file, you have to stop and restart the web server. Okay. And that's it for this feature. Back to you, Will.
Thank you, Ad. Super cool. That made it a lot more that make that made it a lot more concrete um than just hearing about it. Appreciate that. Next is on to something that's been a kind of a theme over the past few R releases, the component manager in 4D. So adding and removing GitHub and local components, plus the auto update feature. So 20R8, integrating third-party components from GitHub is now even easier than ever. You can directly manage update components within the dependencies manager with automatic version checks, ensuring you're always up to date when you want to be. And back to Ad for a deep dive into this developer feature.
Okay. So we have covered this particular topic for the past two webinar, but we continue to add something more to the feature, and I think it's important that we all see this in action. So let's go and take a look at the project dependency first. So these are, the default components that I have installed in my application. Okay. Now let's say we want to install something else that comes from GitHub. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. I have one in mind that I'm going to use. It's called 4D macros. So I'm going to go ahead and go directly to GitHub and take a look at the release option, the releases. So you can see that this particular component has many versions posted on GitHub. We can choose one of the versions and install it into our application. So maybe 101, okay? Now, in the previous demos, I made a lot of modification directly to the file. Now, for this new version now, you don't need to do that. Everything can be done directly from this window by clicking on the plus option here. Two options available for you if you want to create a dependency from a local file, you can, or it can be directly from GitHub. So here, I'm going to start typing in, and what is it? Macros. Okay. And as soon as it detects the string that you put in has a repository on GitHub, all of these options will become available. For example, if I mistype here, it will not show anything until I correctly put in the correct information. Okay. There are four options in here that you can choose from. In this case, we're going to go ahead and choose the exact version. I'll put in 1.0.1. I'm going to add that to my dependency. You'll be notified that this component is not yet available until you restart the application. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to quit 4D. Okay, well, let's close that. And then restart it up. Okay, now the component is now available and installed. We can also verify this from here. Okay, it's just right there. All right, so let's go back. Now let's say in many cases, when you deploy a component onto an application, there might be some cases that you always want to use the exact version. You don't want your customer or your deploy version to use any newer component because it may not have been tested properly, which is fine. I think in most cases, we rather we save and deploy something that we know, then rather than deploy something that might have introduced new bugs into your application. But in some cases, you might want to, use the latest and greatest version if you want. So in that case, what you can do here is you can choose the option to, let's say, go back to edit the dependency, to always use the latest version. Okay, so let's see if I click on that and apply. Okay, so if I restart the application now, 40 is going to go and grab the latest version and install it. Okay. Now, maybe you don't want to do that just yet. Maybe you want to double check to see if is there any latest version that I need. Down here, there's an option that you can use to check for updates. Okay. And this option, as you can see, this thing is going right now. This option is checking for whatever the latest information that you have available on GitHub. If there's one, go ahead and identify that on screen. So in here, update available 1.03, that will be the latest version. In this case, I can choose to update the macro now or restart, or let's go ahead and choose that option. Okay, you're going to be prompted with this. Do you want to restart now? Let's go ahead and do so. Okay, so now we are at the most recent or the latest version of the component, which is can be helpful for your development and your test environment. Again, choosing the version of component is really up to you. It depends on what you do, but in the most case, sometimes during the development, you might want to just go with the latest one because it's something that's new and may have some bug fixes available. So you always want to be on the cutting edge. Okay, and that's it. That's all for me. Back to you, Will.
Thanks, Ad. Very cool. And I think we're going to be doing a lot of these ping pong. So back and forth. Because there are a lot of developer things we really want to show off here. And also, of course, you all want to be on the cutting edge of all your components. You're at the webinar for the release for the beta. So seem to be people that are all about that. So when I came to 4D from a different type of technology, I was amazed at 4D's debugger and still am. I don't know of any other system that has a debugger that's as easy to use and clean and in a programming language in a rapid development environment. So yeah. And then from 20R8, they've taken the debugger, they've taken the challenge to make the debugger even better. And they've tried to, and the team has made it, in my opinion, much more user-friendly and better looking. As you can see, that looks a little bit different. And you have a lot more features now in the debugger, like auto saving of expressions. So you no more re-entering your expressions. Your inputs are saved and ready whenever you revisit that code. Pinned expressions, so keep important expressions always visible, no matter where you are. Enhanced variable display, so access your local variables, line-specific variables, and your own custom expressions for precise debugging, and a redesigned interface that is sleeker, more intuitive, and built for your productivity. So yeah, I think you can all agree it looks different. It takes getting like anything takes getting used to, but I think everybody will be much more happy with that going forward. And to show you a little bit on the debugger, I hesitated putting it in. We hesitated putting it in, but I like Ad's demos so much, and he provides so much context, so I'll pass it over to him.
Okay, so we are back here. We have a very simple method. I'm going to start by just launching it. I'm going to hit the breakpoint. Okay, so we can see the debugger. The very first thing that you may notice right away is the placement of the tools on the top. These buttons used to be right underneath these three buttons, which is the close box, Now they have been moved over here. Another thing that you will also notice is the save button that will save the expression are no longer there. It has been converted to another feature that I'm going to show to you in a second. But I'm going to go ahead by starting to run the step over each line. Okay, so currently the expression area is empty. All right. So as I step to the line that has some code in there, it's starting to display the expression. Okay, expression could be just about anything that can present a value. Okay, so if I go to the next line, right now is undefined, obviously, because I haven't executed this line yet. So I go to the next line, it has been declared. And then I go to the next line. Now, actually, VName is no longer in here, is has been replaced by start and end variable. And that's because this is again is by design. Each time that you step, it only shows this expression for that line. And that's because we added the ability to control what is going to be going to appear inside of the expression panel. Currently, it's being selected to line expressions. Now, if I choose local variables, okay, it will display any local variables that has already been uh, uh, created in this method. Okay, it will not show anything else, even with this process variable as well. Now, I can choose to add that variable in there if I want to. For example, if I double click in this area to create a new expression name, okay, I can go up and down and that local, and then if I go back to the line expression, doesn't matter where I am in the method execution, I will always see VName in there. Okay. So another thing that is quite important is, let's say if you have a method that you're calling in, and you have, even though this expression has been added already, if you go inside of this method, okay, VName is no longer there. And because it only maintains the expression that is that you created for that method, for the context. So in order for you to be able to view all of this expression you may have in this area, we have this option here. If I'm moving my mouse slowly to this small little icon, you can pin it, okay? So that when you are in a different location or a different method, the call chains as deep as you want, the information or this expression will remain visible to you at any given time. Okay, so this is one of the nice thing is by instead of having the save button here, we now convert everything into a different form of display in the expression in order to decluttering the expression area. I always find myself that I have to keep removing stuff because over time I keep adding more things and I have to scroll down. Just too many things going on. So this is going to help you quite a bit, especially when dealing with a very large method and the information that you may want to see is only relevant within that line of code. Okay, so this is definitely going to be something that you have to get used to, but I think over time it's going to really help speed up your programming process. Okay, and that's all from me. Well, back to you.
Here we go. So, yeah, next. So we've extended the feature set of the form edit command, allowing you to be able to go directly to a specific object in a form that has that gets highlighted whenever you call the command. So when I call, for example, form edit form2 form.firstname, it takes us to that specific form object. And this is really cool when you are writing kind of what we could maybe call introspective code, code to review, code to when issues happen in the code. You'll be able to then go directly to that form edit, and then you'll be able to figure out what's going on in a testing. I think add uses this quite a bit. So again, theme of the day. I'll let add kind of talk more about this in a quick demo.
Okay, so this feature is really quite helpful when you don't want to have to click so many things, right? Sometimes you have a form that is really can be complicated. Things are hidden behind something else, and but you know exactly what you want to get to. This feature is going to come in very handy, and it's something that has been extended from an existing command, which is form edit. So I'm going to start by showing you this simple form. So I have a form with a bunch of objects and randomly created, um, multiple pages. Each page has its own set of objects. Sometimes when you're working and you want to access particular item or an object, form object, quickly, like for example, you open this form, if I want to go to form number 2 and have to work on this one, I have to open the form, click on next page, and just go there. Now, with the new added feature is this. So I'm going to run this method. Okay. What I want is, again, the code is never going to be stacked down like this, but you can imagine if you have some sort of introspection that lists all the things that you're going to need at that particular time, you can add your code to write and access that particular part of the form. So in this case, the first line is I'm going to open up the form name form edit, and I want to go directly to column 1 object. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and run that. So you can see that immediately it opens up the form, highlight column 1, and I can work with the property list, make modification to this object very quickly. Okay, let's try the next line. Input 2. Now, input 2 exists on the same page, but it's a different object now. It's pre-selected for you, including the property list has been selected and open, ready for you to make modification. Column 4, this one is on page number 2. Again, it's deep inside of the list box, has been pre-selected. Property list is ready to go. And the last one, it's the same, very simple concept. It just minimizes the number of clicks and helps you get from A to Z very quickly. It's just something that's when you start working with so many forms and you have your process to streamline your form access, and even uh, something that will help you get from one place to another quickly. Something like this could definitely help. Okay, so hopefully this will be something that someone will find beneficial. I know not everyone is writing the code to do introspection, but if you do, this is going to come in very handy. Okay, back to you, Will.
Thanks, Ad. Now with 20R8, we have something we call direct typing in 4D. I do pound declare C underscore variables are a thing of the past. Not really, but that just sounded fun. So before, developers had the option of typing or not typing their variables. It was always recommended to type your variables. Not typing your variables, let the 4D compiler do it. And there were some difficult to find bugs in people's applications when they would do this. You may or may not have run into some of those. But now we're adding a new option called direct typing in 4D. You now have the option to do this for your application. This pretty much means that all of your input and output all of your input and output parameters for a method need to be defined using the pound declare keyword. And now, if you do this and you make and you change your application from all variables to be typed or not typed to direct typing, you no longer need to use the compiler underscore methods. So those are a thing of the past. And the declare syntax is now mandatory for declaring your method parameters. The benefits, there are many, but variables can be defined wherever they are logically appearing in their code. So whether that's in a method, a class, or other appropriate contexts. So that means that your code is much, in our opinion, easier to read. And all the code, everything is declared where it's being used. And then compilation time is much faster. Those are just two quick benefits for this feature. And also, if you're going from non-typed variables, this is a much safer and secure way to write your code and run your code. And Ad, passing it over to you for the demo. Back to the demo. Look forward to seeing.
Okay. So I have another application here with very simple 3 methods. Okay. One is a method that has ctext declaration. Another one is a C-long, and this is the declaration for the parameter, input parameter. And another one is for using declare keyword to declare input parameter. So currently, I'm going to go open up the compiler. Currently, we have set the option to type all variables. And before we move on, if you are creating a brand new project, I believe starting in R7, you will not see any of these. You are, by default, it's going to force you to use the declare statement, the declare keyword to define your input output parameter. And also, you will only have a limited option in here. Okay. So if you have a database that has been converted from the previous version, especially, and even if it's in project mode already, you will continue to have this option available to you. Okay. So this is an example of the database that has been converted from an earlier version of 4D that has been created into the project mode application. So let's keep this compilation path with using type the variables. Okay, so if we try to compile it or check syntax, no problem. Okay. Now let's go ahead and change that to something like, I always recommend anyone to use this option just to keep yourself from going insane trying to find an issue later. So let's choose that option and click OK. All right, check syntax. I get 2 errors right away. Okay, and this error usually can be handled just simply by creating a generate typing, and that's going to create your C underscore method, C underscore variables. But we want to get away from that. With the new feature now, with the direct typing, if we go there, choose the last option, okay, click OK. You'll see right away that the option to generate the typing is no longer there because you don't have to do that anymore. Okay, everything has to be explicitly defined within your method, and we can do that. Let's go ahead and check syntax again. Okay, the only thing that is complaining now is this method that you are declaring your input parameter. It's going to be the same if you have C compiler method to do a declaration for output as well. So this can be converted into using C, what is it, declare. And then your input, you can name it whatever you want, right? So let's say we keep it sorry, what did I have? Long int. Okay. So this also can cause you some problem, right? Because you want to expect something that is readable. Okay. So that's one thing that we have to be aware of which option of the compilation that you're choosing. Now, the good thing is, if Vincent, one of our senior engineer in our headquarter, has written a very nice component, which I've actually demonstrated a bit earlier for the macros that allows you to convert all of these declaration into the new format with the new keyword using declare and var to make sure that your application falls into the right format and 4D will not complain when you do compilation next time. So take a look at that component, and I think it will help save you time that you need to spend to do all of these things. Okay. So that's it. That's it from me. Let's go back to you, Will.
Thanks, Ed. Uh, as Ed said, as Ed alluded to, um, adding in Vincent's component is as easy as opening up your project dependencies and grabbing it. He did it in the demo already. So there's no reason to not go there. So have fun with that. Um, and that's really cool of him to do that. Next is to both features in 20R7 and R8. So a significant enhancement to our email management capabilities through the Gmail API have been added in both of these versions. And these are, again, based on the developer requests. So the upgraded Google.mail.getLabelList function allows you to retrieve unread email counts along with label properties more efficiently. And in 20R8, we added another powerful 40 Netkit feature, accessing Google user information. With OAuth 2.0 integration, you can quickly pull the details about the currently authenticated user using google.user.getCurrent, including their name, email, and more. Now, Ad had a lot of fun playing with this, and he'd like to show off the fruits of his labor. So I'll pass you the torch, Ad.
Okay, so we're back to the first application. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right to this. If you have used Netkit before to access your Gmail, you'll probably understand how it works. There are a little bit of steps that you have to do in order to authenticate yourself and be able to get information back. So in this demo, the first simple demo, I want to kind of go over how it actually behaves. So we have all of these parameters that we need to send to through the Netkit, the OAuth API. I'm not going to get into much the details here, but the important part is once the token has been accepted, I will be able to gain access to get, for example, the label from my email account. So here, I'm going to go ahead and put the breakpoint there. I'm going to go ahead and run. Okay. So the first thing that's going to happen here is I'm going to go ahead and next, as soon as I hit get token for this OAuth object, okay, it's going to open up my web browser, and web browser is going to give me an option for me to choose the account. In this case, I'm choosing my own account. I'm going to go ahead and accept that. And again, there's another option I have to go through to allow Netkit to access my Google account. Continue. Now, here's the part where we kind of have to do things manually. That is, for the Netkit component will give you a feedback that, okay, it has already been verified Well, but it doesn't send you back to 4D automatically because the way that the browser and 4D interacts is not like in sequential and it doesn't link together. So I have to hide that. And you can see that it goes to the next line, which I can now, I'm going to move over a little bit. Go to the very next thing is I'm going to go ahead and create another Gmail object from my authenticated session. From here, I can go to the next line and get my labels. Actually, let me remove that. Okay. So here's the labels being acquired. Let me expand my window. So these are the labels from my mailbox, my Gmail mailbox. So labels kind of like a folder, right? The name of your folders. So how you want to access, it gives you an option, the name that you can reference to when you try to get the list of email from within particular mailbox folders. So all of these, again, it comes in a form of a collection. So what do we do with it is really, from here, you can decide what to do with that option next. So that's kind of like the basic understanding of how you would be able to connect to Google, access your email, and your mailbox information. In the real project, real world, we probably don't want to do that outside of 4D at all. And going back to the browser and coming back to 4D is kind of a clunky process. So what you want to do is you want to integrate all these things as part of your 4D application. So I have created something simple that does just that. We have a blog post that also teach you how to do that as well. I just kind of I modify some stuff there and make sure that it fits into my narrative. So here I'm going to run this window. So you can see that we have 4D window open up. I name it Gmail. Okay. This whole area is the web area. Okay. You get the same information that you saw earlier in the browser. I'm going to accept and choose my account. It does what it's supposed to do, similar to what you saw earlier. I'm going to continue. As soon as 4D kicks into its own page, I get a flag that notify myself that, hey, it has been successful. I closed out the web area and display everything into the list box. Okay, so all of this information came directly from my Gmail, my Google account, and it has all of the folders and all of the things that I need to move forward to the next step. For example, if I need to get all of my email list, I can choose this option and the information is provided to me to access those information. Now, this is in the form of a list box. You might not want to see this. And I also did not show every single attribute, only the one that's essential. You might want to transform this to something else, that's what I always want to do. I hate seeing raw data like this. The user don't care. The user always want to see something like this, right? So you can transfer that information into something that's more presentable and more integrated into a UI and to make it more user friendly to everybody. Okay, so yeah, that's the feature. And then the blog post again, it takes you step by step on how to do all of these things. For me, I can only imagine that everyone would want to do something like this, make sure that everything is integrated into your for the application, as well as making it more of the feature within your application rather than going outside of 4D and come back again. All right, so that's it. That's all the feature I have for you. Well, back to you.
Ed, love the demos. Thank you very much. I think that's the end of them. But now we get to go into the fun part and all your questions. Someone asked Tony asked, if we associate a class to a form, can we still assign other ad hoc properties to the form object?
Yeah, I believe so. The you don't need the form object. Um, well, here's the thing. When you define the form to be bound to an entity or a particular class, actually, let me step that back. When you bind something to be one-to-one, right? An object to a form, kind of have like an explicit uh, binding between the two. If you want to add something in additional, um, I have not tried it myself. I can only imagine that it might not pertain that information correctly, or I don't see how you would combine the two into one. This is something that needs to be tested out. But again,
I I added something during this call, I added something to like a form object and so
yeah,
said form dot another variable or interprocess any variable, and it provided it gave a warning.
yeah,
So I think the goal of this feature is really for classes, for forms
yeah,
that
because
mainly to classes, you can use
yeah,
that way.
especially when you saw, I don't know if you remember the screenshot that Will showed. At one point, when you in the form method, when you use the dot, um, a form dot, something, that form needs to have the property of the class or a class property or class entity that you assign to that form. Otherwise, it will not become available. So that might be the indication that you might not be able to do that.
Yeah. But again, this is the first, this is another addition into enhanced debugging with classes in forms. So if this piques your interest, Tony, by all means, we'd like to hear back from you in the forum, in the feature request forum. So thank you. Answer that live. Does it validate all objects like in a list box? This is the same. I believe yes. I had a demo that I have a demo was playing where you had this dot first in the list box. It was that form dot or this dot first name. Um, and those were the columns. So the columns were specifically in a list box. So yeah, you can go into a list box and you can use those form objects in the list box. And I think add you had that in your entity selection, right? You had your
Yeah,
list
that's a
box.
little different, right? From that form, it's coming as the entity selection. That form has nothing bind to it. There's no assignment of the form class.
Mhm.
So, but the validation of a form object like list box. Now, if you have a list box in a form that you assign a form dot field name in there, um, it is not going to complain. I don't know how it's going to appear because of this one-to-one. Now, list box, you want it to be a full list of selection or data. But in terms of the assignment, I don't think it's going to cause any error as long as the name of the your property is correct. Okay, next.
Good. So Joshua asked, can these classes, I think HTTP outgoing and the HTTP handlers, be interact with an external Apache web server? I would say yes.
Yeah, why not? It just HTTP expression, which can come from anywhere.
Yeah, we did it from Chrome, so might as well be anywhere else, Postman or whatever. Um, if it doesn't, talk to support, I think would be but it should work. And then when receiving requests from external applications, how do it's the licensing question. How does it work with the license? If you don't know how many requests are going to be getting or being sent from an external application into 4D. So it uses one and holds it. Um, Another way to think about that, but for that session.
So,
So it
so
uses
there's
so
a
it
lot
uses
of
one license per
information.
session.
Yeah, there are several information that you need to maintain from the client side as well. Every time when you make a connection, Footy returns REST. Specifically, Footy returns you a list of things in part of the header that you have to resend back to when you're making another call so that Footy knows that you are the same person that you have visited earlier. If you don't send that information back, Footy will think that you are someone else
Yeah.
and it basically consume more license.
Yeah. So if done right, you use as many kind of sessions that you, so it's a REST, it's based on REST sessions, the
Yeah.
licensing consumption. And if you're hitting it without keeping that session information, those cookies, and resending each time with those cookies in the header, then you're going to use as many licenses as you send. So I hope that answers that question. And Guy asked, can the expression order be changed? And I was playing with this. No, cannot. Um, you can unpin,
The
repin, but you can't change, you
oh
can't
yeah,
flip flop, drag and drop.
you can choose when it goes in. That it means that if you manually type in create a new expression, then you can choose when it goes in, and then you can have that in particular order. But if 4D is displaying the line expression, you cannot choose the order. Let's say you saw the declaration of two variables, start and end date, start and end date. Um, Apparently, 4D will go displaying the back first on the top because when it add a new expression into the panel, it goes from and like a stack, right? So the first goes to the bottom, and the next one goes to the top. Next one goes to the top.
Oh,
So you
okay.
always see the last thing on the top.
Okay. Funny. Um, that makes sense. And someone asked about, I think optional parameters, and that's optional parameters for methods or functions. And that is actually, I found, I think you're talking about a concept that we talked about also in V20 are something was variadic parameters. So there are parameter you can have undo you can do in the same way you used to be able to do with unknown number of parameters inside of your I can add the thing in here unknown amount of parameters inside of your application inside of your method, so you can continue using that with declare, and there's just some new syntax to be aware of. And multiple people had that question too. In a form class, does the class have to work with the top form, like a form.data.firstname versus form.firstname, if the form has multiple records attached to the fields?
Form dot first data. Okay, so very good question. I can probably try it very quickly, but
Yeah. And we may come back to that during, I don't think I'm going to be speaking a little bit more right now. Don't leave, but ad will ad will play, and then we'll come back to that. And again, if anything pops up, thank you all for your this is the bigger webinar, but it's into the user interface. So things to help you with and simplify your user interface. So in earlier versions of 4D, if the blank if null property helped improve clarity by hiding null values for time fields in inputs or display zones, parts of your application. However, this feature was not available for listbox columns and footers until now. With 20R7, you can apply this property to make your listbox data cleaner and easier to understand. So I think that looks a little bit more sparse, but again, easier to read. So pretty cool. New feature that you get for free. And navigating multi-windows applications can sometimes be challenging, especially when dealing with multiple forms or documents. In 20R7, the new set window document icon command uh, makes your application more friendly by allowing you to assign custom icons to your windows. Now, this is maybe a small addition, but it's quite powerful and it helps your users identify and switch between the windows that saving them time and reducing confusion as they work. So yeah, the practical benefits of this are clarity. Your app becomes more intuitive. Efficiency with distinct icons, you can now make sense. You can now make more sense of what each page is, um, and it gives your application a more professional look. It's more in line with what people want and see when they open up other types of applications like VS Code or anything really with the name in the middle or Zoom for that matter. So very cool feature that allows you to keep your application looking like everybody else following the lines. User interface or questions from before? Questions? Next, 40 Pro updates. So in 20R7, the visible borders feature in 40R Pro makes working with tables easier, especially when lines are hidden or the cells are merged. So here's a quick little demo, just a quick thing. If you turn on that, you have the ability to see your app, see how the cells are being distributed, what they look like, and in the back end. So that's a cool feature for you to show that information for your end user if they want to do that when they're developing a Word 40 Pro documents in their application. And that's similar to when you copy and paste cells from Excel into Outlook, for example. We all see that now. All of that works like that now. So those are the 40 Pro updates. That's the 40 Pro updates. Um, but someone asked, where can you add the icons to the form?
It's so the way to add the icon or to the form or the form header, to the title bar. I think that's what you're asking, right? It's the command. You can call that command at any time when the form opens, or the window opens. So that's just a
Yeah,
nice
the
quick
command
idea
is
of what to
set
do.
window document icon.
Yeah.
James asked, how did you
Oh.
associate the icons with the Google label?
So the way that I did was, and again, I do this a lot because I don't have my own icons. So those icons actually came from emoji. I just converted an emoji into a picture, and then the hierarchical feature allows you to assign an icon to it. So that's kind of how I do it. So I just pick, which label I want to display and just assign each icon to it.
Cool. Thanks, Had. Next is our 40 View Pro feature. So 20R7 introduced a lot of new features in 40 View Pro as we updated its underlying spreadsheeting framework, Spread.js, to version 17.1. Some key improvements are the ability to insert columns by dragging the headers, something that you have in list boxes. I've seen in certain applications. Charts like waterfall and smoother lines for other charts. You can now insert charts from multi-selection and benefit from uh, lollipop variant sparkline. Not sure what that is, but if you know what that is, you know. Um, uh, and then a lot of other things that have been coming along in the underlying framework. So great addition to the feature set. And then another thing that we've added in 20R8 is a lot more granularity on the VP export and import document. So you can now take control of your files and export and import exactly what you need. And I would visit if you have questions, I would visit the blog and the documentation for that. Um, Cool. Any questions from the 40 View Pro uh, or previous questions that we've seen? Thank you all for the questions. We've almost beat um, the other webinars questions, so keep them coming. I like to say that we field a lot of them. Okay. Next is the big news in the Qodly Pro. 40 Qodly Pro, the beta is now over with 20R8. So we are we feel that the app that Qodly Pro, 40 Qodly Pro is now, which is the uh, Qodly extension of 4D server within the 4D product line. And that is now feature rich and ready for you to use and deploy applications. It is on, so it's live on 20R8, and therefore it'll be live in 20 LTS based on our current deployment strategy. Not sure if you've been following the blog. This is the most recent post about that, but every week Vanessa has been she's been doing a series on making an application and every step-by-step process of the application and the various things that she's needed to do and learn and explain to a 40 developer as they're getting into Codely. So it's a really interesting and in-depth weekly series of a blog. And and a little bit later in this webinar, and because I want you to stay with me, and in an email tomorrow, will receive an email to a YouTube video that shows the demo and exactly how it all works together as well. So stay tuned for that. Any questions? 40 Codely Pro questions or other things? Okay. I'd like to give a shout out to Brent and his team that have been putting on the 40 method meetings regularly for the past many years. And I'd like to highlight two that have happened recently that I was able to take part in. Both Kesuke's Enable Change Tracking was a great demo that from Kesuke, and also Ricardo of 40 and AI. So talking how people can integrate LLMs and how they can be used inside database applications to speed up your processes to get you thinking in the that help people get them thinking about how to use LLMs in their real world. And I'd like to give it a plug for April 2nd is the next meeting, another 4D. The topic will be Visual Studio Code and 40 developers, code, debug, and copilot. The speakers are going to be Matthew and Damien. They're both from the product owner team. So they will be doing that. And they want your feedback as developers to know how we can improve the integration and how we can improve and use Copilot and technology like that to help you developers develop faster and better applications that are fit for your end needs. So another thing that I'd like to discuss here is the 40 US partners page is getting a reboot, and all 40 partners should be there. This helps your business and your SEO. You may have received some emails from the team and we're asking you to go click the button on the email, update your site, your logo, and your name. It should be really quick and it helps us complete this and shows the world what a great partner community that 40 has and allows you your business to be seen and to get noticed. So I would like to say every time there's a new release, go to the blog, and there's this current webinar there were 27 blog posts that Ad and I got to review, look through, learn from, and really that's really our entry point into seeing what's being added into the 4D feature set and the 4D product, and it's an active community, and the team is constantly updating it. So that's a great entry point and that's a great entry point into the new features that are happening in 4D. And I encourage you all to visit there often. I think there's going to be feedback happening later. Please, feedback is always appreciated and welcomed. So please, any constructive criticism we'd love to hear, of course. So, okay, well, last call for questions. Sorry for going a little over. Thank you everybody for staying with me and Ad for so long. I really appreciate all the questions and and y'all's participation. So thank you very much.